of Steeltalk with myself, Ryan Turner.
And Jonathan Million.
And we are here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're at Johnny's Steel Shop with the one and only Mr. Zane King.
Yes. Right.
Zane.
Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Yeah.
Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us. Thank you. It's great.
My pleasure.
Yeah. We've been following you for a long time on YouTube and Facebook and all that, and you're a heck of a busy guy on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of picking as I tell people with my songs, I'm like I put a lot of notes in there. So
You definitely do.
thank you guys for listening and
it's good.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
we love it.
I knew somebody was. So. See, it was you two.
It's so great to be here, and this is your dad's steel shop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
beautiful place. Yeah.
Yeah, so this used to be a recording studio. We had a recording studio here, and in fact, kind of right where we're sitting, we had, instrumentation, we had pianos and drums and steel guitars, of course, and ISO booths, and so then when I moved out, and I kept telling my father that he should do this. He should actually set up steel guitars and have a place for people to come and play and purchase them and trade them and that sort of thing. So he's actually been doing this for several years now.
That's great.
So yeah, if you come to Nashville, Tennessee, you definitely need to look this place up.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
Some beautiful instruments.
Yeah, no doubt.
Seeing pedal steel guitar for you. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
How did it all happen?
So it was, I was born and there was a steel guitar in front of me. And honestly, so I was born into a family that loves steel guitar. And it actually began with my grandfather.
Okay.
Who, after World War II in Honolulu, Hawaii, a lot of the servicemen were stationed there in Honolulu as a cleanup project from Pearl Harbor and protection mode and that sort of thing. So there were literally tens of thousands of people in the army during those days, and my grandfather was one of them.
Wow.
And so he was a young man, and one of the things that he shared with me later was that in his time off, he would go and he would take Hawaiian steel guitar lessons. And this would have been in the early 1950s. And then after his time there, he came back home, which was Arkansas, very country, rural area.
Yeah.
And he brought back with him probably a fairly crude Hawaiian steel guitar.
Oh.
And from there he shared that with his brothers, and they began to play steel guitar. And then later, my dad, he began, to get interested in the steel guitar. Well, it was in the early 60s then, when they began to take the Hawaiian steel guitar, and thus the pedal steel guitar was born. And of course, I've been working with a company that the heritage goes all the way back to Shot Jackson.
Yeah.
And those first Hawaiian steel guitars that they put together, a pedal on, because they thought all these different tunings, if we could take this one string and we could bend it to this particular tuning, then you could eliminate part of the necks and such. So this would have been in early 60s at this point, when the pedal steel was really beginning to be developed. I was born in 1968.
Right.
So by the time that I was just, a wee little guy,
Irish show.
Right, I know. That's my best Irish I can get. So I probably was, I think I was 8 years old, and my father, he had heard about a man by the name of Zane Beck.
Okay.
And people have always thought that I was named after Zane Beck because of the first unusual name of Zane.
Yeah.
And but that wasn't the case. My dad had just heard that name and liked it. So in '68, when I was born, I don't think my dad even knew of Zane Beck at that point.
Okay.
But Zane Beck was living also in Arkansas, and he had advertised about giving pedal steel guitar lessons. So my father heard that and called and set up an appointment. And so I was 8 years old, and I got to meet Zane Beck, started taking lessons from him, and he put a lot of effort into that. He coached, and I would spend literally sometimes in the summer I would just spend so much time with him.
Sure.
And and it was so good. By the time I was 11 years old, then Zane Beck would take me to the International Steel Guitar Convention, and I began to play, and he would play his set, and then he'd bring me up for a couple of songs and play along with him.
Brilliant.
And that lasted for a couple of years, and then by the time I'm 13, I got my own set. And
That's fantastic. That's a good achievement.
yeah, it was. And but in my early years, I practiced a lot. I mean, I practiced. My dad, he would want me to practice 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And it's one thing to just spend 8 hours practicing. It's another thing to practice correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And fortunately, my mentor, Zane Beck, who was such a great player, as well as a great manufacturer and inventor of the instrument.
Of course.
In fact, many people don't even realize that it was him who invented the knee lever.
Really? Is that so? Yeah.
It's pretty well established fact that he was one of the first ones to do that.
Sure.
He was playing in a band, and in those days, the steel guitar players, they all played standing up. And because they wanted the band to look a certain way, they didn't want the steel players sitting down. So this particular artist, he didn't like the fact that his steel guitar player would be sitting down playing with the pedals. And so Zane Beck, he had to play standing up, but because he had already been experimenting with the pedals, he just thought, I've got to be able to do something. So he made a way in which instead of having the pedal, he could hit that with his knee lever, so he still remained standing.
Yeah.
And then he would hit that knee lever with his knee, and he kind of made it. I haven't ever seen it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah.
And because he kind of made a little bridge, and that way the band looked a certain way.
Yeah.
And from that, the knee lever was born.
Brilliant.
And, right?
I never knew that.
Right. So, but during those days, when he was still alive, I would go during the summer, and sometimes I would just stay at his house for 2 and 3 weeks. And he would be building guitars, I'd be practicing, and he'd come in throughout the day, and he'd redirect me on something.
That's great.
And he always taught me to learn the hard stuff first.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he would teach me jazz, and deep chord theory. I mean, he was a brilliant musician.
Yes. Wow.
And so he would give me the hardest things in the world to do.
Yeah.
Because he would always tell me, if you learn all the hard stuff, the easy stuff will come to you.
Yeah.
And I think he was right about that.
Yeah.
He was very much right about that. So, so I did as a young man. I mean, young kid. Learning to play. I just tons and tons of hours into it. There's.
And that is the secret, isn't it, Zane, for anybody? Practice is key.
I think so.
Yeah.
But practicing correctly.
Correct.
It's one thing, because if your technique is off, or you can actually learn something the wrong way.
Of course.
And then it's hard to undo that.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important, and especially in the early stages of trying to learn this very complex instrument.
Yeah.
It's so important to learn how to hold the bar correctly, learn how to, your picking hand. Now there's some options you have to you, because clearly the steel guitar is such an expressive instrument, so you don't, not everyone is going to hold their picking in the same manner.
Yeah.
And even with the bar, there's certain things that people will do differently than others, and that's fine to have different expressions.
Sure.
But by and large, though, you want to be able to, whatever you're going to work on, it needs to be Correct.
Of course.
At least something that's established.
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to spend too much time undoing something later on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant
That's
advice. Yeah, really listen.
I've been, as Jonathan has been, and a lot of people at home in Ireland are very familiar with you, Zane. And one of the things I admire is your crossover. You've got so many styles. You really have got a very wide range, because you play country so well, and you go right across, and you play different tunes.
Right.
Yeah.
So guitars with different amounts of strings.
Right. And different styles.
Different styles. Yeah.
True.
And you play them all so well.
Well, thank you. This also, probably in talking about my mentor, Zane Bagg, this is probably was established, early on in my musical journey.
Yeah.
He ingrained into my musicality. He ingrained into me the idea that the steel guitar can do anything.
Yeah.
That there was no limitations on it.
Yes.
And while there probably has been a stereotype of someone, because we could have 10 people walk in here now and see these instruments, there would be quite a few of the 10 people that wouldn't even know what they are.
Sure.
There would be others that wouldn't know that they're a steel guitar. Oh, and that is a country music instrument.
Yeah.
And it's it's supposed to be real whiny and sleepy.
That's right.
Yeah. And so that is kind of where the instruments kind of got pigeonholed and stereotyped into a place that in those days, I think my mentor Zane, he was probably feeling like I need to let him know that he does not have to only play country music with this.
Yeah.
That he can do anything with
Yeah.
it. And so having that as a foundation, when I look at this instrument, I see no musical barriers whatsoever. And I also play piano.
Yeah.
I've played piano since I was a young kid as well. So when I'm growing up, I'm studying piano at the same rate that I'm studying steel guitar.
Yeah, excellent.
I ended up at Berklee College of Music at a very young age in Boston, studying music full time. And of course, I did all my proficiencies on jazz piano.
Right.
And so then translating all that knowledge to steel guitar has always been a really common thing for me.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So
Do you think was that an advantage?
it's most definitely an advantage.
Yeah.
I would say to any musician, not even steel guitar withstanding, no matter what instrument you're trying to learn to play, and if it's your instrument of choice, you should at least still have some basic knowledge of piano.
Yeah.
Because music theory and scales and chords, it's so easy to see it on a piano.
Yeah.
And so when I'm thinking about a minor, 7-flat-5 chord, I actually see those notes in my head as a keyboard.
You picture a piano.
I picture a piano
Yeah.
more than I picture the steel guitar.
Wow. Yeah.
Now I know on my guitar where it is,
Yeah.
but for some reason in my head I actually picture the actual notes on a keyboard.
Yeah.
I've talked to other musicians as well who have the same experience,
Yeah.
where they know just enough piano because it just lays so well.
Yeah.
It's such a visualization
Yeah.
of the scale and
Of
the
course.
chords and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it really helps.
Yeah.
But back to this idea of this, where I come from, and how I hear songs and I hear music, and so I've always kind of taken it as a challenge to show people that there is a wide depth to this instrument, and there's honestly, we're already there. I mean, I think you could. A lot of people don't realize that steel guitar. I mean, Elton John, in Rocket Man,
Yeah.
that is a steel guitar that's making that
Yeah, I heard
tone.
that. I heard that.
And there's more moments like that in pop and rock music than what people even realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but because a lot of the rock and roll bands, they never took steel guitars on the road with them because it was some kind of a specialty song that they put it on.
Of course.
I think it did kind of get cornered into country music.
Yeah.
And so jazz, is something that's really, I think, fascinating to play on a steel guitar.
Yeah.
But when it comes to rock and blues, we actually have a great advantage over guitar players because the tone and the depth that comes from the slide,
is automatic
along with
there.
the distortion,
Yeah.
is actually it's so robust
Yeah.
and big.
I've heard you play some of that type of
Right.
and
It's
it's great. Yeah.
and this is something also in popular music, way beyond country, and they actually use slide, guitars in a lot of country music as well. But I think a lot of people don't realize that what they're actually hearing a lot of times is a slide or a steel guitar that's making those rock sounds.
Of course.
Because I've spoke to a lot of great guitar players, and they are just super envious
Yeah.
of what a slide on a steel guitar can do. Because no matter how much they try to use the bottleneck,
Yeah.
it's still a challenge for them.
Yeah.
And so I approach all of my work with the steel guitar from that standpoint to showcase
Sure.
that it is far more than what we're kind of ordinarily think of it.
That's right.
However, I do love the country sounds as well, and of course I just shared with you guys some of the Hawaiian
That's right.
music that I'm working on, which really takes us all the way back to the origin of the instrument.
That's right.
And
So
I'm even fascinated now what I'm able to do with the Hawaiian sound. So even in the coming year to 2 years, you're probably going to hear some music on my YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah,
that
it's
will-
more
I'll be
Hawaiian-based,
showcasing some
yeah.
Hawaiian based because
Yeah.
we just want to cover the gamut.
Yeah.
But another thing, Ryan, with my playing, I would tell you, and I think this is really good. This is really good for people to hear, because you hear a lot of great players, and we've had some great genius musicians who have played these steel guitars, and there's things that I'm sure you've heard that you'll feel like I could never do that, and myself, I'm like. I know there's things that I'll never be able to play that I've heard others play. But for me, when I play a steel guitar, it's all about expression. It's all about the soul. It's all about the feeling of what music and how that can translate. And honestly, I play several different instruments. There's no better instrument to express one's creativity and musicality better than a steel guitar.
Exactly right. Yeah.
We could have 10 players in here today, and I could blindfold you guys, and you could probably tell me the difference between Buddy Emmons, Lloyd Green, and Mike Johnson, and maybe yours truly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would know the difference just in listening to their music.
Personality.
That's because of the guitar is so expressive, and so I just think that's a beautiful thing in the instrument. So what I try to do is I don't necessarily ever try to chase, Paul Franklin's latest intro that he's done, or I love John Huey. There's so many players that I have listened to and studied, but I never really set out to try to be like them.
No.
I just wanted to be like me.
Well, I can tell that by your playing.
Thank you.
You're Zane King, and you've got your identity just like John Huey has and like Paul Franklin has.
Well, thank you.
And it's great.
Thank you. And that's intentional.
Yeah, I know.
Because I wanted to always establish my own self. But what I try to teach others to do is you can have your own identity like that as well.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's a thing where, don't try to think I've got to do all these different tricks and I got to do all these different, hot licks that we call them. I've got to pick fast or slow. I want to make this kind of move. Quite honestly, I've been able to take some of these songs that maybe you've heard on YouTube, and my entire approach is that I just want to interpret that song musically in a way that hopefully is fresh and new. But again, it's not about trying to outdo the other player.
No.
And I think that's key.
It is.
Because I think we're competitive by nature.
I know.
I think we're just competitive people.
Yeah.
And still guitar players, because there's so many different ways and things and how to do it. You get into this place where you may want to try to. You're tempted to want to try to one up the next person. Outdo that.
Sure.
That version of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a bad road to go down. as a player. I think the best way is to pull back from that temptation and then just take together again. And, you know, you interpret that the way you want to
the
play.
way you feel it, yeah.
That's right. And then for the audience, ultimately, you know, many of them will never understand the difference between a performance between John Huey and me, and maybe the player that's just been playing a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because all they're going to hear is just, you know, oh, that's a steel guitar, and they hear the music like that. So it's to me, it's better to simplify.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're going to talk about simplification here in just a second on the 6-string.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The first time, and we're going to talk about this, Zane, because I know your relationship with Jackson Steel Guitars, but when I first encountered you on the internet, I can't remember exactly what guitar was you were using.
So, in fact, Zane Beck, he was, of course, known probably more for the ZB Custom guitar that he manufactured, and then later the BMI, guitar.
Yeah.
So he had two brands there that he put out into the market.
I wasn't aware. So Zane Beck was involved with ZB.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the ZB Custom was his company.
That was his-
It makes sense.
Yeah. Right.
Very good.
Yeah. Tom Brumley actually later owned the company.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So ZB Custom and then the BMI guitar. So when I was a kid growing up, my first guitar was a BMI. And it actually was the first keyless model that Zane Beck had made. And it was actually the prototype.
Wow.
Because and we actually probably have it around here somewhere. But anyway, it's you tune from this side with Allen wrenches.
Right.
And then this was completely keyless. And he had been experimenting in those days with the keyless guitar.
Well, I was going to say that's probably one of the first keyless guitars ever, was it?
That's right.
That was the beginning
That's
of
right.
that.
Yeah, very, very early. And I think there's some other stories out there about keyless and such. But he's probably one of the first ones to put it that far into the market.
Yeah, sure.
That he did with the BMI keyless. And so the first guitar I think you see on YouTube with me in those days was a guitar that my dad, he had taken a guitar of mine, and he actually took it all the way down to nothing and all the parts, and he put a new body on it.
Right.
And he rebuilt it.
Cool.
And it sounded great, and so I started doing some experimenting with that guitar.
Sure.
In those days, I was adding pedals to my setup. Zane Beck's original guitar that I learned to play was 12 strings and 4 pedals, and then 5 knee levers.
Wow.
And
Well, that was a universal.
that's a Universal 12.
Yeah.
That's the E69 tuning
6-9,
that he gets the credit for putting that together. It's a very unique top part of the tuning is from G sharp, F sharp, E, so it's very musical the way it comes down, as opposed to the E9 that you get this that common da 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 da.
Yeah.
So we put the chromatic. Buddy Emmons put the chromatics on the outside.
That's right, yeah.
So then Zane Beck, he put the chromatics on the inside.
Cool. Yeah.
So my tuning sounds like this, or like this.
Very good.
So it's just, it comes straight down, and so that's kind of the basics of it. And then as it expanded, as I did my C6 studies, I began to add some other pedals. So my setup right now that I prefer to play, you talk about the different tunings I play. So I'll just kind of tell you my array of things that I do. So I met David Jackson many, many years ago.
Sure.
And later we became really good friends. And then he seemed to be in his own personal journey of manufacturing and coming up with different ideas. And I think he was honestly, David and Harry, his brother, were just bored of making the same steel guitars, and great ones.
Yeah.
But there's still the single necks and the double necks, and
well, those guys are responsible for a lot of great
they really are. They really are. And so David was doing a lot of experimenting. And I think he and I we made a great partnership, and I was playing them and coming up with ideas, and he was building my ideas, and then he'd have an idea and I'd play his idea. And but he first built me a 12-string guitar. It's the one you see a lot on YouTube, the green one.
The green one.
Love it.
And it is 12 strings. it's got 7 pedals, it's got 5 knee levers, and then it has the arm lever.
That's correct. I can remember seeing that. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would call my primary guitar.
Okay.
But then I also have a 10-string guitar that is very close to just a standard E9 setup. Because of my system, it's the closest way of thinking to the Jimmy Day pedal arrangement.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have Emmons and Day setups, right? So my setup is not truly a Day setup, but it's closer to Day setup than the Emmons setup, in that it swings this way.
Okay.
And so from there, I began to need to play some E9, on records and things of that nature. But then I also wanted to just begin to, showcase some of the things in the E9 tuning.
Sure.
So I have a 10-string guitar. It has 4 pedals and 4 knee levers, and again, it sounds a lot like an E9 setup. Then I also have a.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
When you started off with Zane Beck and you were there practicing, was that a standard E9 guitar?
No, it wasn't. It was a 12-string.
So you started in 12 string.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that was so you carried that right through.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the classic E9 and C6 setup. I've never really done that sort of thing.
Sure.
It's always been the 12-string.
Yeah.
This E69. Some people think of it as the universal setup. That's always been my primary guitar.
Yeah.
And then I also have a 6-string slide guitar, and it's got hand pedals on it. And so it's an E tuning that when you hit the pedal, one hand lever, it goes to an A.
Okay.
So it's the 1/4.
Yeah.
And then I have a minor lever on that as well, so it'll take it from an E to an E minor.
Cool.
So it has the minor pedal and then the 1/4 change. And so you see that on some of the videos.
Yeah.
That's brilliant too.
Yeah, and that's the one I'm actually using with the Hawaiian music. But I've kind of unengaged the levers, and I just use the straight steel. And then, of course, my most exciting thing that I have is a 6-string pedal steel guitar.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, what kind of gave life to that.
Is this the one with 2 pedals?
It's got 2 pedals.
Yeah.
And it's got 2 knee levers.
That's great. Yeah.
So the idea is kind of twofold. The first thing is I call it steel guitar simplified.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people that, they hear steel guitars and they want to learn how to play them. Even great musicians, guitarists.
Yes,
They're one of the group that, they would love to be able to play steel guitar. I mean, almost every great guitarist I've ever spoke to, they'll ask, I would love to do it, but it's too complicated.
A lot of people I know have actually tried.
Yeah.
Just given up.
Right.
Suppose again, maybe things have been hard.
Yeah, it's costly and it's also complicated.
Yeah.
And then it's where do I start? Where do I begin?
Yeah.
And so the idea behind this 6-string steel guitar is to simplify it.
Yeah.
So what we've done is the 6 strings is just an E tuning,
Open E.
open E.
Okay. Cool.
And so basically it's an E9, but without the top chromatics,
Yeah.
and without the D
Yeah.
and the 9th string, and then without the 7th, the F sharp.
Of course.
So it's and then the 2 pedals are exactly what you would think. They are the A/B pedals,
Do they give you a 4 chord straight away?
4-chord or the minor,
Oh, yeah.
or a sus chord,
Cool.
and then of course you've got your lowering of the E and the raising of the E.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So it raises and lowers your
It
E's.
does, yes.
That's cool.
So quite honestly, it probably musically, from just a commercial standpoint, it probably does about 90% of what any pedal steel guitarist.
Well, I'll be honest, it's probably about 90% of what I can do,
Yeah.
because the 9th and the 7th string,
Yeah.
I just haven't found the place to use it properly, So,
Right,
well,
right.
occasionally, I obviously
Sure.
learn a mix,
Sure.
and you'll work out where that's
Sure. And for guitarists,
yeah.
when they first sit behind a guitar, a steel guitar, and they're trying to learn how to play, they can't understand the F sharp and the E flat at the top. Anyway,
This is it, yeah.
it's confusing.
So
It
I remember
just
that
musically
when I-
doesn't make
yeah.
sense to them,
When I was
and they
starting-
never know how to incorporate that.
Yeah.
So I've had so many guitarists now.
It's great.
In fact, there's a young man that lives not far from here. At one point I gave him a 10-string guitar. He's a great musician, and I gave him a 10-string guitar to go and try to learn, and he gave up. He said it's too hard. I can't figure it out. I just can't do it. And recently, I put one of these 6 strings together for him, and he's got a 6-string, and he called me the next day, and he's like, I can play it. This is perfect. It makes sense.
This makes sense.
Yeah. And I talked to him just the other day, and he was recording with it.
Yeah.
Putting it on a record.
Brilliant.
Because
that's fantastic.
I wouldn't consider myself a steel player, although I have a great interest in, and I do play very basic, but it makes sense what you're saying, because even the grips that I go for are just those standard, you know, 8, 6, and 5 or whatever, 6, 5, 4 on the E9, and a lot of those extra strings that you've just talked about are left out. Yeah,
no doubt. So it's an exciting experiment.
Yeah,
brilliant.
And so we have that.
So you developed this guitar?
I have, along with David Jackson.
Along with David Jackson.
And we're very excited about it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one reason why we're excited about it, because recently we had a phone call, and this gentleman, he decided he wanted to give steel guitar a try.
Sure.
And so we initially built him one of the 6 strings with the hand pedals.
Sure.
Later we've done the same thing, and now he has 4 pedals. And so I've got to visit with him several times about this, and he's making progress with it, but it's none other than Peter Frampton.
Wow.
Really?
So Peter Frampton
is
loving steel guitar.
Wow.
He loves the sound. He's always loved the sound.
Yeah.
And so that's been a beautiful acquaintance to make,
brilliant.
and to listen to his interpretation of the music.
Maybe you can post it away, really.
Right, it could be, yeah, absolutely. So,
That's brilliant, yeah.
but it just goes to show you how far and wide that the steel guitar sound appeals, you know, to people and to musicians everywhere, and great guitarists like him. And so I'm on a mission to try to help promote this instrument, because I also think
encourage people not to be put off by all these strings and 7 knee levers and loads of pedals.
Yeah, and especially the beginners.
Absolutely.
We know that guitarists they're attracted to the 6-string with the 2 pedals, but also the beginners as well, because I believe that there's a whole group of people that would love to get into playing a steel guitar if it just wasn't so costly and so complex. And so we're trying to simplify that, trying to keep the cost down in order to be able to get into playing this instrument. I think that will birth literally a whole generation of new players. Now some of those players, they may never play anything more than 6 strings, and that's fine. They'll do things with it that I can only dream about doing. And but then I think others, they may then graduate and want to go to a 10-string or a double neck, and they can do that if that's where their talent takes them.
It's very much of a case. Is it fair to say it's taking it back to the basics? And you know, Jonathan and I have had this conversation. And you know, nowadays it's fabulous. There's no doubt. There's a very large range of pedal steels, and you can get up to 8, 9, 10 knee levers and 10 pedals. But I know when I look back at the players that I like, I'm going right back to the very beginning, to the Lloyds, and you know, and if you're to break down the setup that Lloyd had, it was such a basic setup.
It is.
And they were able to do so much, and that's the sound we're looking for, you know, that I'm looking for when I play.
I first released a video of me playing the 6-string, kind of explaining, you know, the 2 pedals and why we were doing it. And I think initially in some of the marketing I did, I said something like this is a new idea or new creation or whatever it was, new invention, and then some people began to kind of criticize that, and I said no, it's from a marketing standpoint. I'm trying to introduce something that's brand new to much of the market,
And it totally is.
because they've never heard it before, never seen anything like it, and but in fact, you can go back to even what I was just talking about, Zane Beck, that invented the knee lever.
Of course.
He was playing a guitar standing up, and he played with that knee lever. So I think with David Jackson, what we have done is we've got an array of different sizes and shapes of steel guitars. The 6-string pedal steel guitar really just does take us all the way back to the beginning when those servicemen were coming back from World War II,
Absolutely.
from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then they had all these lap steel guitars, and of course Fender and Gibson were manufacturing these things by the thousands.
That's right.
And in fact, here in America, we had door-to-door salesmen, people who would knock on doors in neighborhoods, and they'd have these guitars, these Hawaiian steel guitars, and they'd bring them in, and then the kids would get over there and they start taking the bar and taking the, their hands, and because it was an open tuning, it immediately sounded like music.
Yeah, of course.
And so the parents, they would buy these guitars and they start taking lessons.
Yeah.
This is where Buddy Emmons came from.
Yeah.
And that's his
That's
story.
true, and Paul Franklin, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Knocking on the door salesperson.
That's right. So those guitars, there was thousands of them, and so then later, of course, we know with Shot Jackson, Bud Isaacs, Buddy Emmons putting the pedals and knee levers and all that came. But this guitar that I'm talking about, it does take us back to that place. Now, David and I have had a very interesting conversation. We believe that probably in its purest form, this instrument should be like, so if you compare it to a standard guitar, the acoustic 6-string, the electric 6-string that Les Paul made and is credited for the electric guitar.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that today if you go to a music store, you're still buying the basic 6-string acoustic,
That's right.
detuning, the basic Les Paul electric guitars. There's a few variations out there in the world, but for the most part, when people think about a guitar, because I could come to your country and I could play any acoustic there, any electric guitar there, they'd all be about the same.
That's right.
Exactly.
This is not true of a steel guitar, right?
Definitely not.
So we feel like it probably in its purest form belongs being 6 strings. The pedals, those arrangements probably need to be very simple, like 2 pedals, 2 knee levers, that sort of thing. So we actually think this is probably the instrument that through the 70s and 80s, it should have stayed in that kind of configuration. It would have gone a lot further, at the end of the day. But we had these genius people, like Curly Chalker. We had geniuses like John Huey and Buddy Emmons. And because of all the different tunings that they were learning to play, they incorporated that into the E9 guitar and then into the C6 guitar later. But it is a rare few people on the planet that has the musical depth and ability to truly take a guitar like the one behind you here, and really play it with a high level of proficiency.
Use it to its full potential.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so rare.
It is.
And so we think that by simplifying the steel guitar in this format, ultimately it will go a lot further into the musical world.
Well, it absolutely may be the very guitar that might just help to keep steel guitar alive.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, that's great.
Because it's an attractive idea, and it's, like you said, it's very attractive to guitar players. I do know, even at home in Ireland, there's some guitar players has ventured to pedal steel, give up, but they've went dobro because it made more sense to them with the 6 strings, and what you're talking about is also a great option.
Right, absolutely. We've actually I have a dobro, and we have taken the dobro, I have it in an E-tuning. It's a Gibson standard dobro, and David Jackson, he took that and he modified it. There's some videos of it, and I have a hand lever on that takes it from an E-tuning to a 4-chord, and then also have the minor as well.
That's great.
That's clever.
I could do with one of those. I can get my head around that.
But David's taught me this, and this is something I firmly believe. There is a sound. There is one, and I think it's one particular sound that a steel guitar makes, and it maybe for you it's that bell tone, maybe for you it's a long slide, but there is a sound that it resonates with the human heart through our ears, And some people call it a heavenly sound, and some people call it a home sound. It just makes me feel home, and the voice of a steel guitar. And with that sound, I think if all future players, all players everywhere, whether you feel like you're a beginner, a mediocre, or a pretty good player, or a great player, all of us, what connects us, and the reason that you guys are even here today is because of that sound. It's not because of me, it's because, and it's not particularly because of this guitar, it's because of our ability to connect with that special tone, that special sound.
Absolutely.
Well, I have said this in several other interviews and to players all the time. I don't know of another instrument that can bring people together like a pedal steel.
That's right.
And as you say, it's just that sound.
Yeah, it's infectious.
It's infectious, very
infectious. And honestly, it becomes addictive.
It does.
And expensive.
And expensive. It really does. Yeah, I know. But and I noticed that, since I was young, in the conversations I've always had with other players, I noticed that there's always this pursuit. There's this pursuit of, do I have the right amplifier?
For the sound.
Do I have the right setting on my amplifier? Do I have the right reverb pedals? What kind of delay are you using? What kind of volume pedal are you using? What kind of bar are you using? What kind of picks do you use? There's so many variables, right?
Yeah, very much.
And yet, I would maintain that the tools are important.
Yeah.
By no means, they are important. But it still comes down to the player's ability to be able to connect with the instrument and deliver that sound that we're talking about.
Sure, yeah.
And most players, so today we probably got 20 guitars sitting in.
Yeah.
And I would tell you that if you name to me your top 3 favorite players of all time, whether that be Curly Chalker or Tom Brumley or Paul Franklin, whoever, whatever guitar they go to, they're going to sound like themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that to me minimizes the tools.
Yeah.
The tools are important. You have to have them to a certain degree, but don't stay so focused on why. What does this player do to get that sound? Most of the time, what that player has done is they've practiced a lot. They've got the basic technique down. And then at some point, they've allowed the music that they hear in their head and how they want to interpret that. It comes through their hands, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. You're right. It brings people together in ways that is it's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
It's so fascinating. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got 2 new friends today. And maybe I'm going to come to Ireland and.
Well, Zane, and we're going to touch on that because you tell me you've got friends in Europe.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and you're making plans of heading that way.
I do. It's a lot about preparation for me.
Of course.
I want to be well prepared when I, take off on an adventure to not only promote and play the instrument, but also to teach and to share my knowledge as well. So recently I've had some invitations to come to Europe and to do steel guitar shows, clinics, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And through the years I've had opportunities like that, but my work here in Nashville has always kind of prohibited me for that kind of endeavor.
Sure.
But right now I am working on some instruction material and kind of developing some things that I can teach to a fairly large group of players.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think in terms of maybe like 2024, I'm hoping to be able to come to your country and to share some of those things, play.
We would certainly love that,
because, so I think that could be fantastic. Because you're right. I love the fact of how this instrument draws people together.
Yeah.
But once we do get together, I want to be able to share in depth. Kind of what my journey's been about. And kind of what's brought me to this place, and then from there just and inspiring others to get on their own journey with it.
But you really have been, you've been great, because I've been following your Facebook and your YouTube for a number of years, and you've been, it's a credit to you towards other players, because you've put tracks up there for people to buy, download your tracks to practice with. People can listen to what you've done.
Is that zaneking.com, is it?
Yeah, zaneking.com, you can get there. From there, it'll take you right into our primary website. I got into doing that a long time ago. Steel guitar doesn't make the greatest solo instrument, and in that, when you sit down to play, and it's just you and the guitar, you can play some mighty pretty things. But to really elevate it, you need a band behind you. So I started playing along the tracks, making my own tracks and playing with them. And then others began to ask me, hey, I would love to have that track to be able to play too. So I began to intentionally to do that and market that, for people, and it's gone really well. And I'll continue to make those. And my struggle has been through the years with instructional material is because as I said, with the E69 guitar that I play, it's so much different than every guitar in this room.
I understand.
And so that's where the base of my knowledge has lived. And so in sharing that in an E9 format, and I've done a good bit of it, but I'm taking that now to a whole different place. And and it's fun. I mean, I feel like even in the coming years, and thank you for following along and for those compliments about how I do it.
You're most welcome.
I feel a lot of energy, towards giving this kind of knowledge to guitar. So let's do it. Let's promote this thing.
Let's make it happen.
Let's hope we get you to Ireland and maybe even be a guest on the Irish State Guitar Festival.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. That would be amazing.
We have quite a good festival there runs every year, and it's really well supported. And we get a lot of American guys over.
I'm sure.
This year we have Steve Hansen.
Oh yeah,
Steve's coming.
Great player.
Steve is bringing his wife Becky, I think, along as well. So that's a treat. Also,
that's awesome.
And all the other players that'll be on the same weekend. It's fantastic, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Zane, is there anything you would like to touch on before we wrap up? Like, is there anything in particular you would like to talk about or tell our viewers?
So, I would tell you that there are many days that I wake up and I'll walk into my studio and I see all my steel guitars in there, all my instruments, and there are times when it looks so foreign to me that I don't even know what side of the guitar to sit on.
Really?
And I probably do know which side to sit on.
I know,
but the point is that when I sit behind it, and I put my picks on, I get strapped in other words. I got the bar, I'm ready to go. Maybe I've got an overdub to do with the recording or whatever, or I'm trying to make a new YouTube video. There are just those days that I look at it and I go like, where do I start? And it looks complicated to me, and it looks fuzzy.
Wow.
And and then I start to play, and it's like, this is hard, and my back starts hurting, and I'm like, this is just too hard. It's so complicated, and it's a lot like a golf swing. So I'm a very novice golfer, but there's sometimes I'll go out. Now, most every time I go to golf, it's a challenge, and I golf really bad. But there are just those moments when I'm like, everything's working perfectly, and I just like one par after another. This is fun. Steel guitar is so akin to that. Because there are days when I want to give up. But then there are those moments that happen when I'm like, wow, that sounds really good. And then it all opens up to me. I'm seeing different places that I can play, and then there's a new thing. I'm like, I've never seen that before, and I'm like, and it's vision. So it's like it becomes alive to me.
Yeah.
And it's just like I visualize it. And I'm like, okay, I go there and try that and it works. And then I try something else and it works too.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'll listen back to something maybe I recorded and I'm like, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I did that. And I don't know where that comes from entirely, but I just want to encourage folks that when you sit behind your steel guitar each and every day, there are going to be days when you're going to want to quit.
Yeah.
You're going to be done with this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it sounds right, it feels awkward, but keep pushing through.
Yeah.
Because you will get to those moments and those sweet spots.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, that's it right there. That's it right there. And it will come.
Yeah.
So that's what my encouragement to people would be is this is a hard instrument to play.
Yeah.
It's complex, it's difficult, it's got so much technique involved. You know, I mean you have to position yourself so correctly to get just some of the basic tones out of it. You know, and you could come, Jonathan, you could play, I could give you a chord to play on the piano.
Yeah.
And you could play it.
Yeah.
And it sounds perfect.
It's easy.
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 And you would sound it, and the way that you would strike the keys and play that chord would sound similar to almost any person doing it. And with the steel guitars, I can tell you just play 6, 5, and 4.
Yeah.
And then push these pedals, and then get off this one and go this way.
Yeah.
Just hit it. That's all you got to do is just hit it once and do this right here and roll down this way. And if you're not played much, I mean, even some of the simplest of things can be so hard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because it takes so much technique.
Yeah.
So we just know we've chosen a very hard instrument to play and to so my encouragement to you is to push through.
Yeah.
Push through and practice correctly, and I've got some YouTube videos about practicing, and so they can look those up.
You can look them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
www.zaneking.com.
That'll work.
That's your website. You're available for remote sessions.
I would love that. I have been I pushed back for a long time on the the video conferencing, Zoom or kind of lessons, but I am open to that now. I'm going to a little bit more time availability, and plus I think it'll help me develop some of the materials that I want to work with. So feel free to, ZaneKing@me.com is my email.
Okay.
It's probably the very best way to try to reach me.
Okay.
Is Zane, just my name, and at me.com.
At me.com.
And they can.
Excellent. Of course, all your YouTube channels, your YouTube channel, all your videos on there.
They do. Zane King Steel Guitar.
Yeah. You've got your Facebook.
Yeah.
And we didn't touch on it, the fact that your wife's an excellent vocalist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic singer.
Yes.
Loads of great videos up there.
That's right. And a lot of what they will hear, they'll hear Donna, my wife, singing. We do Christian music as well, and when we hopefully someday come to Ireland,
It'll be wonderful.
we'll probably be sharing some music, and of course, certainly, my wife can sing Patsy Cline and Reba McEntire. I mean, she just sings anything.
Yeah.
So my favorite video, in fact, let's point everybody to this video.
Yeah.
Put in Zane King Steel Guitar and Blue Bayou.
Blue Bayou.
That's the
And
one.
she's singing Blue Bayou, and I play the 10th string. Enoch on that one. So
Cool.
It's great, and we hope to see loads more of those videos come up soon.
I'm going to get busy.
You're going to get busy.
Great.
Tell you what, it's maybe I help to know that there's so many people watching it as well, but certainly in Ireland, you have a huge fan of this, and I know guy Peter Donahue has got some tracks of you. Peter's
He's
not
a good
long
player.
He's not long playing, and he'll tell you what he's doing so well.
And those tracks do help.
They do.
Big
And just to record yourself and listen back. And here's where you're going wrong, and you can tweak it, and you can work harder on certain areas of your playing. It's really good to buy tracks. I would encourage that to get your tracks.
The 6-string pedal steel guitar, Jackson Guitar Company. If someone in Europe or at home in Ireland wanted to, and it's an attractive idea, a very attractive idea for any guitar player wanting to get in there and get the basics. It can be ordered through the Jackson Guitar
It can, yeah, and certainly feel free to contact me if that's easier. But also, just if you want more information about any of the guitars that I play,
Wonderful.
JacksonSteelGuitar.com.
Yeah.
They've got them all there, videos, and they list out all the different specifications and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And plus the Jacksons, they're just some of the most beautiful people, and they treat people really well and deliver.
Yeah.
You know, on what
Deliver the goods.
Yeah, they deliver the goods, and so that's why we've had a great partnership in that. But yeah, that 6-string. I mean, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's on your YouTube channel.
That's right.
You're demonstrating the guitar for anybody to see exactly what it does.
Yeah, and again, you know, that idea that there's no limitations musically with it. I mean, you can play blues and rock and slide and you know, country and Hawaiian, and
it's all there.
It's just all there.
It's all
It
there.
really is.
Wonderful.
It really is.
Zane, thank you so much for taking time to talk.
My pleasure.
We really appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Lovely learning about all your experiences and what
you.
you can provide for us in the future. So I'm looking forward to that. Excited to that. Thank you for having us here.
Well, that brings another episode to a close of Steeltalk from Nashville, Tennessee, with Zane King, Jonathan Milligan. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for watching.